Imagine living in a home and having most of your mortgage paid by someone else. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, it's totally possible. Today, we're exploring Florida homes that practically pay for themselves. I'll show you how house hacking works, how much you can earn with an ADU or duplex, and real numbers that will help guide your decision. This is one of my favorite topics because it's all about getting creative to save and make money. Florida's not the cheapest place these days, but with house hacking, you can offset these costs big time. By the end, you'll know how to make your home pay for itself. Let's dive in. What is house hacking? House hacking is basically living in your property while renting out part of it to cover your expenses. There are a few popular ways to do this here in Florida. Renting out extra bedrooms. You buy a home, you live in the master bedroom, and rent the other 1 or 2 bedrooms to roommates. Their rent helps pay your bills. Accessory dwelling units. This is like a small apartment or cottage on your property. Maybe a garage apartment or a mother-in-law suite. You live in the main house and rent the ADU, or vice versa. Duplex, triplex, and quadplex. You purchase a 2 to 4 unit property, live in one unit, and rent out the others. Believe it or not, from a mortgage perspective, they are the same as a single family home, but with the advantage of being able to use rents to justify your mortgage approval. All of these strategies let your tenants help pay your mortgage. It's pretty awesome. Florida is actually a great place for house hacking because we have a lot of multifamily homes and ADUs, and a steady demand for rentals with lots of people moving here, students, service workers, and let's not forget all of those employees that make up our world-famous attractions that need to live somewhere. Let's talk numbers. These are recent numbers from 2025. Example 1, renting spare rooms. Say you buy a 4-bedroom single family in Orlando for $400,000. You occupy 1 bedroom and rent out the other 3 bedrooms. As of August 2025, the average rent for a single room in Orlando with shared common areas might be around $700 or $800 a month. This varies by neighborhood. Near UCF, it could be $800 or more for a room. In the suburbs, maybe $600 to $700. Let's be conservative and say 3 rooms at $700 each. That's $2,100 a month from roommates. Now, your 30-year mortgage, if you put, for example, 5% down on that $400,000 house, that would be roughly $2,500 a month for principal and interest. Add insurance and taxes, and maybe you're at $3,000 a month. Just estimating, of course. With $2,100 from your roommates, you are only paying $900 out of pocket, perhaps a little bit more with utilities. You're living in a 4-bedroom house for what many can't even get an apartment for. And your roommates are essentially buying the house with you. Over time, the mortgage principal goes down and your house value hopefully goes up, and you paid a fraction of the cost. Example number 2, house plus ADU combo. Imagine a home in St. Petersburg with a detached garage apartment, that's an ADU, out back. You live in the 3-bed, 2-bath main house, and the ADU is a 1-bedroom that you rent out on a yearly basis, or even as the furnished month to month. In Central Florida and coastal areas, a 1-bedroom ADU can rent for about $1,200 to $1,500 per month, easily, depending on location. Let's say $1,300 a month. Now, that home might cost, say, $350,000. Mortgage, maybe about $2,000 a month with some down payment, plus taxes and insurance of about $600. So let's say $2,600 total. That $1,300 from the little apartment covers half of your total payment. You're effectively living in the main house for about $1,300 a month plus utilities. That's likely less than you'd pay to rent a similar home. And you have privacy because the tenant is in their own unit. Example number 3, buying a duplex. You purchase a duplex in Jacksonville for $500,000. Now, in Jacksonville, $500,000 gets a really nice duplex. Median single family price in Jacksonville is only around $305,000. So a $500,000 duplex is probably 2 modern units in great shape. You live in one side, the other side you rent out. The average rent for a 3-bed home in Jax as of mid-2025 is about $1,682 a month. Let's say you get $1,800 a month rent. Your mortgage on a $500,000 home, assuming you put down 5% FHA, will be around $3,000 a month for principal and interest. Plus insurance and taxes, maybe about $3,700 a month. The renter's $1,800 covers nearly half of that. You effectively are paying maybe $1,900 a month to live in a $500,000 property. Plus, you're building equity. But wait, it gets even better. If you had a triplex or fourplex, those 2 or 3 rented units could potentially cover all of your mortgage. This doesn't just work in Jacksonville. If you bought a triplex in Tampa for $600,000, each of the 2 rental units can bring in $1,500 and you can live in the third. That's $3,000 from your tenant. Your mortgage is say about $3,300 and you only pay a few $100s a month to make up the difference. Essentially, living for next to nothing. With today's rates, it might be a bit more out of pocket, but still unbelievably low for living in a valuable property. As of August 2025, average rents in Central Florida are all over the board. Orlando 3-bed home is around $2,384 a month. Gainesville, a 2-bedroom apartment is about $1,200. Tampa, a 2-bed home is around $1,876. Meanwhile, 30-year mortgage fixed rates are about 6.7%. What this means is rent you get from even one tenant can cover a big chunk of what a mortgage is because rents have risen a lot. For example, Florida's population growth has pushed rents up about 10% in many areas year over year. If you bought a home in 2020, your mortgage might be fixed while rents climbed, making house hacking super profitable. But even buying now, in many cases, the numbers still work, especially when using low down payment loans. Your return on investment for the cash you put in can be very high. You might only invest $20,000 or $30,000 to buy a $400,000 duplex using an FHA loan and see maybe $10,000 a year in rent from the other unit. That's a huge return relative to cash invested. Not even counting that tenants are also paying down your principal loan balance for you. Beyond traditional tenants, Florida offers some more unique options. Short-term rentals. Maybe you don't want a full-time roommate. You could Airbnb a room or an attached studio while still living in the house. For example, one Orlando homeowner I know rents her ensuite guest bedroom on Airbnb on weekends only. Tourists pay $80 a night for that room. Even if she rents it 10 nights a month, that's $800, covering her utilities and then some. She likes this arrangement because she doesn't have a permanent roommate, just occasional guests, and she's careful to vet them. Of course, make sure your local rules allow short-term rentals in your home, and of course, your comfort level, security, those kinds of things. City of Orlando allows home sharing rentals if it's part of your primary residence. Exactly this scenario. You could rent to traveling professionals. Florida has many traveling nurses, contract workers, and digital freelancers who come for 1 to 3 months and need a room or an ADU. They often pay a premium since it's a shorter term than a year lease, but longer than a vacation. If you have a furnished mother-in-law suite, you could charge, say, $1,800 for a nice studio in Miami, or $1,500 in Tampa to a traveling nurse, much higher than long-term unfurnished rent. These gigs can really boost your income and still not feel like a permanent tenant situation. Co-living or student housing. In college towns like Gainesville or Tallahassee, some owners rent by the room to students and include utilities, essentially running it like a mini dorm. The combined rent per room often exceeds what a family would pay for the whole house. For instance, a 4-bed in Gainesville might rent to a family for $2,000, but to 4 students at $600 each. That would be $2,400. Including utilities, maybe it's $2,600. This covers the mortgage with extra left. It's more management work, but it is a strategy. Live, work, duplex. If you're an entrepreneur, consider a multi-use property. Some Florida homes, especially in mixed-use zoned areas, have a storefront or office space attached. You could live in the back or upstairs and rent the front to a small business, or use it yourself for your business, saving on separate office rent. The business tenant's rent effectively pays a chunk of your mortgage. For example, a homeowner in a historic Tampa neighborhood might have a small gallery renting their downstairs street-facing space for $1,000 a month while they live upstairs. Yet another way your home pays you. Run the numbers for your specific scenario. Be realistic but optimistic. As we saw with real data, it often works out. Even if a house hack covers 50 to 75% of your costs, that's a huge win for your finances. Over the years, you'll save tens of thousands, maybe more, and build wealth through property appreciation. I have 2 freebies for you that'll make your investing journey easier. First is our Sunshine State Handbook. This is a super helpful guide I put together about moving to and investing in Florida. Scan the QR code on the screen to get your free copy. But if you're really ready to get moving on making that long-time dream of having an Airbnb a reality, give me a call. I actually answer the phone, believe it or not, and I'm here to help with any questions you may have. On the right side of the screen, scan the QR code to book an appointment. Thanks for watching. If you learned something new, hit that like button and subscribe for more Florida Insider tips. This has been the Florida Real Estate Insider. I am still Tom McNamara. See you in the next video.